Morning, sixth grade. Happy history. We're ready to get started with chapter 8 in history. So, chapter 7, we talked about the Greeks. We spent most of our time talking about Sparta and Athens, two specific cities that were in Greece that came to power. And then we talked about them battling the Persian Empire, and then they battled each other. And we ended last week with both lesson 3 and 4 talking about how uh, the Macedonian Empire was coming to power, and people might not have been paying attention to that, and they probably should have been paying attention to that. And that's what we're going to pick up today. We're going to talk about the Greek civilization, guys, and how the Greek civilization had huge impacts on tons of other civilizations. And one of the reasons is that Macedonian Empire, led by Alexander the Great. He's going to destroy the Greeks, but then spread the Greek culture. And so we'll spend some lessons talking about Alexander the Great, but also what all goes into the Greek culture. So I'm just going to get us started as we start this review. It says Alexander became king of Macedonia when he was only 20 years old. Before his death at the age of 32, and as you study history in other places, guys, you might see 33. When I was growing up, they thought he was 33 years old when he died. Obviously, as we try to date these things, guys, and go back in time, it causes some problems. Irrelevant. He died young. He had built the largest empire the world had known. That's why a lot of people call him the greatest conqueror ever. His strong will and personality enabled him to lead armies to victory. He is considered one of the greatest generals who ever lived. Alexander's childhood tutor was the Greek philosopher Aristotle. We'll talk about Aristotle. He encouraged Alexander's interest in philosophy, medicine, and science. As an adult, Alexander spread Greek art, ideas, language, and architecture into all the lands he conquered. The impact of his rule lasted for centuries. So he makes a huge empire, guys, but it's an empire that lasts because he spread the Greek culture. Let's go through our timeline and our things on here so you get an example of Alexander's empire, guys. You're going to see what we're studying from 700 years before Jesus to up to about 212 years before Christ. By this time, 212 BC, Rome's going to become a powerhouse, guys. Start taking it off. But you can see Alexander the Great. He's going to start up here in Macedonia. He's going to conquer Greece. Then he's going to cruise through the Persian Empire in Asia Minor here. Cruise down here, conquer what would have been the Jews, and cruise and destroy Egypt, turn around, go back through Mesopotamia. He's going to head into the India here, guys, and got all the way closing in on China when his army says enough is enough, and he starts to return home, guys, and he never even gets home. He dies on the way back home. So the guy comes to power at a young age, starts on the world's greatest conquest of years, and then never makes it back. On the bottom, we're going to talk about some of the things here from when the Olympics began. And then down here, guys, you can see the different things that are happening in history. So I always encourage you to glance at this is what we'll be talking about in this chapter. And then this is sometimes what we've talked about already, and sometimes things that are coming. So you can see, hey, Kush and Egypt, we already covered that. China and Confucius, nope. Roman Empire, nope. Olmec Empire, nope. Mauryan Empire, nope. Silk Road, nope. So, things overlaps. But what I'm stressing here, guys, is just understand the overlap as we go through these chapters. All right, let's get into lesson 1 for the day. Lesson 1 goes like this. We're trying to answer what the Greek culture is, and we're answering the essential question, what makes a culture unique? It matters because the Greeks made many advancements that continue to shape our world even today, guys. And so when we talk about culture, culture is such a wonderful thing. We want to study other people's cultures to pick out the cool things that we respect out of that culture and then add it to our own, right? And things that we might be different from us, guys, we don't say, well, they're wrong, I can't believe they did that. We say, okay, I'm not going to put that as part of my own, but I respect the fact that they did that in their lives, kind of thing. Let's get rolling on it. You have learned that the ancient Greeks formed city-states. These were independent states made up of the city, remember the agora and the acropolis, and the land that surrounded it where they did all the farming. Although city-states separated Greece politically, the Greek people were united by a common culture. Here's what the common culture is. Number 1, they all spoke the Greek language. 2, they all shared many beliefs and customs. So if you think about America, we have a ton of different cultures in America. We have a ton of different ethnicities and things like that, but most people know how to speak English. Most people know what Christmas is and are going to put Easter eggs and jelly beans out at Easter kind of thing. They have beliefs in the freedom of speech and there's a God and let's act right? Okay, so that's common to all people. The Greek people also believe many of the same myths. So you're number one in your blank, guys. What are myths? Myths are traditional stories about gods and heroes. So lots of times we'll use myths to teach these beliefs and customs, and we'll see that as we go through that. Greek myths express the religious beliefs of the ancient Greeks. Let's learn about them. Like other people in the ancient world, the Greek believed in gods and goddesses. Polytheistic, guys, many gods. The Greeks, however, did not think of their gods as all-powerful beings. You do. You think of your God as all-powerful. In Greek myths, the gods have great powers, but they look and act like human beings. In Greek mythology, they marry and have children. At times, they act like children, playing tricks on each other. Because the gods showed human qualities, the Greek people did not fear them. Okay, I'm not scared of the God because he's just like me. He's a human. So, guys, there's a big time difference here between how we view our God and how they view their gods and goddesses. We have respect. He can destroy us, obviously. Now, their gods can do powerful things, guys. But the other thing is, as we go through this, you'll see that they act human. And so, guys, it's a good example of how sometimes you can tell a religion is a fake religion is if it makes common sense. Oh, he's acting just like a human? Well, that means humans invented it. Our God doesn't act like a human. He loves unconditionally. That's not normal to us, guys. We love only those who love us, right? And so God sometimes doesn't say, hey, you're going to get heaven. Did I earn heaven? No, you definitely did not earn heaven, Bauer. You earned hell. You sinned and messed up. So why would you give me heaven? Because I'm a God. I don't act like humans act. So keep that in mind, guys. Okay, Greeks believe that the 12 most powerful gods and goddesses lived on Mount Olympus. You're number 2 in your blank. Okay, I'm going to click this thing here quick, guys, and just show you a few things. Number 1, here are the gods and goddesses of Mount Olympus. Except 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Okay, so if you look up the 12 gods and goddesses of Mount Olympus, guys, on the internet, you're going to get a ton of different names. Some of them are the same, and sometimes they add other ones. So depending on which Greek mythology you're studying, they've changed over time and changed in importance and things like that. Okay, what's Mount Olympus? It's Greece's highest mountain. A gate of clouds protected Olympus. The gods could come and go as they pleased, but humans were stopped from entering through the gate of clouds. So this is their mythology, guys. Mount Olympus is a real mountain, and they just believed the gods lived on top of it. Humans couldn't get to it. Now let's go through some of these gods. Zeus was the king of the Olympian gods, while Athena was the goddess of wisdom and crafts. Apollo was worshipped as the god of the sun and poetry. Fill in your blanks. Aphrodite, people looked up to Aphrodite. She was the goddess of love. 2 fierce gods were Ares, who is the god of war, and Poseidon, who is the god of seas, and fill in your note, earthquakes. So if you ever read the Percy Jackson series, if you were in 6th grade and we were in person, you'd read the Percy Jackson series with us. Percy Jackson is the son of Poseidon. So Poseidon, a god, came and married a human and gave birth to Percy Jackson. And Poseidon is known especially for being the god of the sea. Okay. Cruising on. It says all Greeks worship Zeus as their chief god. Each city-state also chose one god or goddess as its protector. To win the favor of their god, the people of the city-state performed rituals. So, guys, you can see the commonality of we're all worshiping the chief gods and all of them. But I got Athena. You can guess the city that's named after the goddess Athena. That would be Athens, right? Who is goddess of wisdom. That's why we call Athens Athens, guys, because they love their wisdom and things like that. So they each had their own city god, too. What's a ritual? A ritual is an action that is part of a religious ceremony. The people worshiped the god in temples and at home. They prayed and offered gifts to the god. Through these rituals, Greeks hoped that the god would reward them. Okay, so now here you're on this blank. they're doing all this stuff. They're hoping to get rewarded by the gods. That makes human sense, doesn't it? If you're nice to the god will be nice to you. Logical. Sometimes we obviously believe that about our own God. We worship Him and we give Him things, but God doesn't owe us anything, guys. And sometimes we get frustrated with God, like, God, I'm praying. How come you're not being super nice to me? God doesn't owe us anything, okay? So keep that in mind. Festivals honoring the gods and goddesses were an important part of Greek life. Each city-state scheduled public feasts and sacrifices. Every 4 years, Greek athletes took part in athletic competitions. These games were for the greater glory of Zeus. They were held at the city of Olympia and were called the Olympic Games. The first Olympic Games ever were held in 776 BC. The ancient Olympic Games took place for more than 1,000 years. And then they stopped when Greece was not a powerhouse anymore, and Rome was a powerhouse, and even Rome was falling from its power by that time. Then they stopped for a couple thousand years, and then the first modern Olympics were held back again in 1896, and they've ran every 4 years since then, only missing a couple during our major world wars, okay? So they still run now, guys. It was a way to praise the gods back in the day. Paul talked about that when he writes to the Corinthians, guys. Corinth is near where Olympia is and where they ran the Olympic Games. And so Paul would say, you guys run for a prize that doesn't last. In ancient times, you ran for a wreath of flowers to put on your head. That was it. The Greeks believed their gods would be pleased if people showed skill in arts and athletic games or in thinking. All right. The Greeks also believed that each person had a fate or destiny. Certain events were going to happen no matter what they did. You can decide if you believe in fate or destiny, guys. A lot of us, we toss that thing out there like it's my destiny. I go back to Star Wars, right? It's your destiny. Obviously, God is in control of everything, guys. What this comes down to, though, is more of a humans don't have a say in how their life's going to turn out. Because if it turned out bad, well, that was your destiny. It was always going to do that. If it turned out good, well, that was your destiny too. I personally don't like that. I like to think I'm in control of my life. And yes, events are going to happen. But I like to think that if I make good decisions, my life might turn out all right. And if I make poor decisions, you know what? My life might be difficult. But I know how to work hard. I know how to get an education. I am controlling what my future might hold for me. Okay, so they also believed in prophecy or a prediction about the future. The Greeks believed that the gods gave prophecies to warn people about the future in time to change it. So you got prophecies here, guys. To find out the future, many Greeks visited an oracle. This was a sacred shrine where a priest or priestess spoke for a god. The most famous was the oracle at the Temple of Apollo in Delphi. So, guys, oracle here. The oracle chamber was deep inside the temple. The room had an opening in the floor where volcanic smoke hissed from a crack in the earth. So, not understanding they were on a fault line, guys, they would literally have steam coming out of this floor, and they're like, these are the gods talking to us. Well, no, it's just a hot spot, but, it'd be like going to Yellowstone Park and seeing the geysers or the sulfur ponds there and saying, these are the gods talking to us. No, you just need to understand geology a little bit, but it's okay. There, a priestess sat on a stool and listened to questions. The priest translated her answers. State leaders or their messengers traveled to Delphi, number 7 in your notes, to ask advice from the oracle of Apollo. And so, guys, you would go there, you would talk to this person and say, should we go to war? And then she would give her a cryptic answer, and we would try to interpret the cryptic answer and say, the gods think, yes, you should go to war and do this. Well, if the prediction didn't come true, what would they do? They'd go back up here and say, well, the gods must be mad at you. You must not have done exactly what you were supposed to do. Or the gods trying to get revenge on you, or things like that. If it did work, you'd say, man, you're a genius. Thank you so much, and I must have pleased the gods. And so it was just a step of controlling how the things were working, guys, as they work their way through it. Okay, we're going to stop today as we're at a good breaking point. Tomorrow we'll take a little bit bigger section as we cruise through that. So you had very few fill in the blanks, and that's all you got. Have a great day, guys.